What's up everybody? Today we're going to be talking about a concept that doesn't get brought up all that much in the utility community, and that is defensive smoking. No, I'm not talking about blocking off choke points like apps on Mirage or this area here on Inferno. I'm talking about something completely different. These aren't difficult to throw, they don't require any sort of lineups, just a little bit of game sense. So let's get started with the absolute basics of a defensive smoke. To simplify, it's a smoke that gets deployed in a position that isn't designed to cut off or block the opposing players. It's going to serve a different purpose, and there are three major benefits these types of smokes can have. The first is obvious. It's going to create space for you in a tight area and allow you to isolate duels and take more favorable fights. The second is that they can heavily counter utility, for example, an escape route from a Molotov or concealment when you're blind. And the third is that they often funnel players into a specific area that could strengthen crossfires or create awkward angles for the enemy. One of the best examples I've seen of this recently was from NIP versus Heroic. This was early on into Overpass, but the second Heroic's execute utility starts coming in, you're going to see Snappy deploy a defensive smoke that allows him and Shush to operate a pretty deep crossfire. It's going to keep two backs turned and allow you jerks to easily clean that up for a clean wipe onto the Heroic attack. So that begs the question, when should I hold onto my smoke and utilize this type of play? B-Site Mirage has one of the most obvious examples. When you're jump spotting and actually see someone, it's already too late to use your smoke on apps. The T's are just going to run right through it. If you watch the pros, they'll almost always drop a smoke right here and fall back waiting for the support of their teammates. Here's a crazier example from earlier this month where Tessus deploys the same smoke and uses it to slip into a very dangerous position. Notice how much respect that one smoke has demanded from VP. Unfortunately, he doesn't quite take down Icy here, but he dinks him and delays the plant to allow Falcons to easily retake the site. And hey, this concept isn't new at all. I've even covered one of these exact smokes on the channel over a year ago, so for now, I'm going to let the old me talk you through a pretty cool example. As you can see here, Kerrigan gets caught out trying to make this jump, and instead of just trying to smoke them off or stand his ground, he ends up just throwing this nice defensive smoke and holds a beautiful crossfire with Brokey here to where he brings down that player, and then Brokey immediately trades out Frozen for a nice man advantage early on into this hit to where Liquid, they're just forced to call that off and not push out because they know they're absolutely doomed. Here's another situation where Magix ends up jump spotting the enemies a little bit too late, where he doesn't feel like he has enough time to fall all the way back, so he just ends up throwing a grenade right where they're standing, and he ends up throwing a deeper smoke to where he's further back on the backside of site and is able to isolate this fight onto bid. Of course, that doesn't mean you should hold onto your smoke until the end of the round every single round. It's still very useful to smoke off apps on Mirage or B-Side Inferno or any choke point for that matter. What you should avoid is wasting your smoke too early. A lot of players, especially in lower elos, will just do a typical full belt dump at the beginning of the round, and while of course that's going to stop a rush, a smart opponent's just going to wait that out and then attack later. And as elo climbs, players are going to start holding onto utility longer, but plenty of people still get a bit trigger happy, especially when there's not much going on around the map. So have purpose behind what you're throwing. Generally, the pros are going to be throwing smokes in response to an obvious loss in map control, incoming utility, or just other information that's going to cause them to reposition. So now that we've got a lot of the what's and whys out of the way, let's dive into some more examples that I like to use in my own games. But first, I do want to thank today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. For those of you that don't know, SkinsMonkey is an automated CS2 trading site that allows you to select the old skins you don't want anymore and pick out some new ones from the monkey. It's a great way to freshen up that old dusty inventory, and hey, that's not all. They have some amazing filter and selection features, as well as 24/7 live support. If you click the link in the description, you can get a free $5 and a 30% deposit bonus that becomes 35% if you use my code TACTICS on the site. Don't miss out on this offer and check out SkinsMonkey today. Let's get back into the video. So for starters, if I'm solo anchoring towards B, I'll almost never be on new box unless I have a smoke left over, because obviously they're going to molly this from time to time. But also, if they end up moving up onto site, you are very trapped in this region. So throwing a defensive smoke can have a massive impact. So let's just talk about it. Let's say I'm set up here on new box, maybe I'm jiggling and waiting for someone. If I see utility start coming in, I may drop a defensive smoke, something like this. It's going to land here. It's going to end up extinguishing any sort of molly that comes in, and I can stay and survive back here as long as I can. I can hop out, take unexpected duels, go back through the smoke, wait for flashes from my teammates, and just really make it miserable for the T's as they're pushing up onto site. Now, the situation I find myself in most often on Inferno is where I'm just jiggling back here behind coffins, and whenever I start seeing utility flying in, for example, like a crossbow, I'll just drop a right click right here towards the front of this fountain. That's going to give me space to move around as I please, even if they smoke me off here on coffins. I could take a more passive angle like playing back here, waiting for them to potentially push up, or I can get aggressive and go for a peek to try to catch someone jumping up on top of first or second oranges. All of that together is a great way to catch the enemy off guard instead of just submitting and just getting stuck behind a smoke. Now, when it comes to Dust 2, a very common position that I like to play is on top of this blue box. That is because I can jump spot out into mid and see if anyone is creeping out on a timing my teammates have left, or maybe if someone's had to rotate. This is something you see the pros do quite a bit. Now, whenever I start seeing utility coming in, whether I'm up here or playing back in this region, I will generally right click a smoke towards the back of this little pillar here. What that's going to do is it's going to put out any sort of molly that's being thrown back here. It's very common. You can also take some very aggressive angles, some unexpected fights. You can even jump up right here and catch someone off guard, even if they have the same idea. Oh my god. I'm keeping that in the video. Now, of course, moving to Overpass, we've already talked about Snappy's defensive smoke that lands right here, and this is pretty obvious. It strengthens the crossfire between Toxic and someone here on ramp, makes it very difficult for the T's to actually clear out this position. But let's go ahead and talk about the A site, since we've already covered that. Generally, when I'm defending A, I'm going to be jump spotting here towards Dice, or maybe I'm peeking out towards Long, and whenever I actually spot someone on either of these positions, a lot of times I'll just drop a defensive smoke right here in the middle of sight, and that's going to allow me to take a much deeper angle, especially on players that are coming out long, and then I can also even peek out of truck here and get up in the front and just take a lot of surprising fights onto players wherever they may be. Now, of course, you could also smoke off the right side, especially if you're expecting more players coming towards long, and this is going to allow you to take more aggressive peeks, aggressive fights, without having to worry about getting traded from over here towards bathrooms. Now, the other thing that can help out with is you can go back behind this truck, right click a flash right here at this electrical pole, and that's going to full blind anyone running up here, and you're going to have a very easy fight on anyone pushing up. Now, moving on to Ancient, one of my favorite defensive smokes to throw is whenever I'm towards Temple or towards this box, if I see enemy utility coming in, I'll throw a defensive smoke right here. And this is going to give me a ton of space to back all the way up to this wall. I can even peek deep into Donut here early on, take a nice little duel. I can tuck up tighter, I could go closer, fight this guy. If someone tries to jump up, it's also a super easy duel. This is just a nice position to just turn into a turret, especially if you have teammates nearby. Maybe they can throw flashes up in front of the boxes to help you out. Whatever it may be, it's a good way to delay. Now, of course, you could also just right click a smoke right here and play an angle where you're tucked in like this, which gives you a nice escape route. So however you're feeling, go right ahead and do it. Alright, I think we've talked enough about jump spotting on Mirage, so let's go ahead and talk about the A site. I'm going to briefly go over a couple of smokes that I like to throw, and one of which is whenever I'm back here towards Ticket, utility starts coming in, sometimes I'll just bank a little smoke right here off of default to where it's going to end up smoking over towards Triple. So this is going to give me a little bit of room, a little bit of a chance to move around and make a play. But another one that's pretty nice is if you're towards default, or maybe you're under Palace, you can right click a smoke right here, and that's going to cause the T's to have to move in. You've got a lot more mobility here to make plays and just get creative. Now, when it comes to Nuke, A site's a little more claustrophobic than other sites, especially if you're playing back here. One of the most common pieces of utility that the T's like to throw is a molly that lands right here on the back side of sight. So what I like to do is kill two birds with one stone. I'll drop a defensive smoke that lands something like this, to where not only is it going to cut off the enemies on this left side, but it's also going to instantly extinguish the molly. So I can just sit up here, really focus on my fights, turn from any sort of utility that's coming in, and just take more passive duels here and make them come to me. Now, of course, they can counter this after you've done it a few times, but this is a very solid smoke to throw that's going to serve multiple purposes. Now, when it comes to A site on train, anytime you're back towards the actual bomb train and see utility coming in, it's not a bad idea to throw a smoke up over this direction. Not only is this going to allow your teammates to rotate through Z, but if you get mollied off, you actually have a safe place to go without getting crunched from someone that's actually making their way out of Pop Dog. You can also, once the molly fades, go for repeaks. You can do all sorts of different things to be tricky and stay alive to get support from your teammates. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. There are, of course, plenty of different smokes you can throw around all the different maps that you can use this same exact concept for. It's really fun to improvise and end up making something out of nothing when all you have left over is a smoke grenade. But anyways, guys, I do want to thank all of my amazing channel members on screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.